And welcome to the Definitive Debate, the Selectmen's edition. And we are broadcasting live here on SMAC, and we'll give you some dates of when it's going to be airing again a little bit later on. Christine Iacobucci is our timekeeper, and Jeff Pickett will be asking the questions. Jeff, of course, is the news director, or the program director, the everything director over here at SMAC. So he'll be asking the questions.
My station manager is very happy.
The station manager, yes. Mike Hammond, is not upset about it. Don't worry about it. He knows he's the boss man. He's got the big office in the corner. We have with us 4 candidates for selectmen, the 2 incumbents, Cynthia Walsh and Bob O'Regan, and the challengers, Bob Cohn and Peter Brown. And we have done the gambling thing. We did the drew for straws, and now we have the seating arrangements. And this is the order of there will be no opening statements because we don't have time. We have 4 people. So we're going to go right into the questions. And the order of the questions will be Bob Cohn, Peter Brown, Bob O'Regan, and Cynthia Walsh. And as they leave for the closing statements, we'll reverse that order. So right now, Jeff Pickett with question number 1. Question number 1.
All right, well, before we get into the first question, go wide shot on the candidates. Just quickly introduce everybody just in case you're just tuning in. You have, let me see if I can get this right, my left and right bearings. We have Bob Cohn on the left, and then Peter Brown, and then Bob O'Regan, and then Cynthia Walsh. So you can go back to me for
I just said that.
Well, I guess I wasn't paying attention.
But you're right, but we didn't have the picture though.
That's right.
Yeah, that really makes a difference.
So
we can see them.
To kick off the questioning, just to get right into the thick of the debate, assess the management of the town from an administrative standpoint. Of course, as the Board of Selectmen, that is one of the duties that you're charged with, is to oversee the town manager and his associates. And so if you can assess the management of the town from the administrative standpoint, specifically the town manager and the human resources department.
Town manager, I don't know all of his daily routine, but I can tell you, as far as contact with the people, participating events in the town, it doesn't happen. For instance, he's been invited to a lot of things, never shows up. His administrative skills, I'm sorry, I'm not a Board of Selectmen person, and I don't know the daily operations up there to comment on that because I don't see that. The human resource person, I'll give you an instance about the human resource person. We voted at town meeting to fill 3 positions in the engineering department. We just hired the first person, the assistant engineering director, or the assistant engineer, and the other 2, he said he's too busy to fill. That's the best assessment I can give.
Peter?
Well, I think the town manager is a knowledgeable man, but he does come across unapproachable. He seems to have a lot of responsibility on his hands to the day-to-day activities. I think that in a position of such, he might do better if he was more outgoing in terms of approachable. I think the human resource director is a man that has a tremendous amount of responsibility as well, but I'd like to see him follow through on the job descriptions, which I do believe some are out there, and I'd also like to see him follow through on the performance evaluation sheets.
Bob?
So the town manager is under contract. He has, I believe, 25 direct reports to him. That's a significant number of direct reports to the town manager for anyone. We put into his job description and into his contract a provision that ties in the Association of Professional Municipal and City Managers that prohibits political activity and requires him to be strictly a professional town manager. I think that's what he's doing. I would like to see, and this was in my comment that was public last year, an improvement in communication, a better relationship with town boards and committees. On the human resource manager, I believe this is the first human resource manager we've had who's had to grapple with a bunch of issues that he has, including renegotiating contracts.
Cynthia?
The only administrative person that the Board of Selectmen actually evaluates is the manager, and those evaluations are due on Monday, and I don't know if the chairman will be releasing the composite on Tuesday, our meeting on Tuesday, or not. I don't have an issue with the manager as far as communication goes, maybe because I'm at town hall, and as he passes, if I have a question or a comment, I usually say, do you have a minute? And he says, sure. I have seen him at a few events at the high school and also for the Chamber of Commerce. It depends. We've had managers that were backslappers, and they didn't manage very well. As for HR, there are job descriptions. In fact, I have two sets. One's from the previous Mr. McNamara and from this individual. I don't know why people say they don't exist.
Question number 2.
Rebuttals or?
Does anybody want to rebut? Question number 2. And this one goes to Bob O'Regan first.
Oh,
It goes to Peter first.
Peter,
Yeah.
Okay.
second
Goes to
question.
Peter first.
Second person.
Okay.
So this will be the first of a two-part question. So, but we're just going to tackle each, because you only have a minute. We're only going to tackle one part at a time. So you can rebut after the first part before we move on to the second part. So the first part of the question deals with development, and this is specifically in the downtown area. And I'd like you to tell me 2 changes specifically that you would make to the downtown to make it better, improve traffic-wise, and improving the business climate. So again, that's 2 changes you would make to the downtown to make it better in terms of traffic and to improve the business climate in the center.
Well, I think that right now there's a traffic studies ongoing regarding making a couple changes, Pearl Street one way and Monk Street, I believe, to only turn a certain direction. I think in order to improve the traffic, we really need to partnership with our state officials, in particular the governor, and if we could get him involved and get him to understand that we really have some issues down there, it might be a benefit to us in the long run. And a second belief is we have to get business to want to come down there. And how are we going to do that? I think the best way to do that is to provide incentives, and whatever that may be. I mean, there are opportunities, there are buildings vacant down there. We have to look at getting a business that will want to come down along with the parking, which may require actual parking garage or something of that nature to encourage people to actually park down there.
Bob?
So for the downtown development area to work, we need to attract residential development and business development, and that means parking. So one of the things that I've done is to draft a downtown development policy for the Board of Stoughton that includes a parking garage that has a loading platform on it for the train to go right at the siding. And that would be available for a residential, commercial, and commuter parking. The other thing I think is necessary is to make the downtown livable. And by that, I mean an area that's friendly, that's attractive, where people want to come. The Master Plan Committee has formulated, and I've been espousing this view for 3 or 4 years, of creating a green space in the square, essentially on the footprint of what is now the post office site. And we've been diligent in contacting the post office. They are amenable to relocating, and we're working on when, where, and how we could relocate them as part of the downtown reconfiguration to make the downtown livable and attractive.
Cynthia?
I think what's come out of the public hearing and information we've gotten from the town engineer is that the signal box, the master box in the square that operates the lights, hasn't been working for a while, and we're talking years. That's the first thing we have to do, is the lights aren't properly synchronized, which means that people have a hard time getting through the square. The other thing is we need to make friends with the people that have stuck with the square, that are still running businesses in the square. And we have to have someone from the town, and the economic development person has volunteered to do this, to go from business to business and talk to the folks. These are the people with boots on the ground. These are the people that have stuck through thick and thin. We also know that there is development going on, and there's things before the planning board, and the square in 2 years should look remarkably different.
Okay. Bob Cohen.
The phasing system was installed yesterday afternoon. You could see the difference today. I saw it. The traffic lights were moving at a faster pace. They were put in at 3:35 yesterday afternoon. I was called by the contractor. I know the contractor, and put pressure on him. The phasing arrived yesterday morning, was installed. Number two is I'd like to thank the engineer for forming a group with the engineering firm that did the traffic study, and it was a very interesting thing. The left turn is going to stay. He's made contact with 3 people, Panico, the liquor store, and Stoughton Bakery. There's his base to start with in the square. I understand there's going to be a report back here next week. And from there we can take it. It'll probably be before the selectmen because you're the traffic commissioners. And let them make the decision of where we're going to go here. But we definitely need a garage. We have to work also with the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay. Next question. This one will go first to Bob O'Regan.
Definitely more, I don't know, what's the best word? Definitely less willing to get into rebuttals than our first debate. That
Well,
we
there
had.
hasn't been anything really that controversial yet.
So
We're letting you do it. You seem to be doing it fine.
the next part of this development question that we'll get into
I like to rebut that.
is, what plans do you have to help spur development in South Stoughton, specifically Park Street and the Campanelli Industrial Park area, and North Stoughton, specifically Route 139, towards Lake Target and the highway, and Route 138, south of the downtown towards the Easton line. And where this is such a in-depth question, how about we extend this to 90 seconds per answer?
Oh, give me a break.
Okay,
And,
Why not?
so just Christine, we'll do 90 seconds per answer on this one.
that's fine.
So it's 3 parts. It's South Stoughton, North Stoughton, and Route 138, south of the center towards Easton.
And Bob O'Regan, you beginning.
I gotta say, with all candor, it's ridiculous to think anyone could give a good, substantive, meaningful answer to that question in 90 seconds. But I'll give it my best shot, and maybe you could answer it in 90 seconds when we're done. Starting with South Stoughton, both Route 138 and Park Street. Those 2 areas need to be sewered for us to get any meaningful, long-term, substantial economic development going down there. So those ought to be part of our long-term sewer extension plan and funded in a way that doesn't break the backs of the property owners in the area. We can do that. That's key. Second, we need to rezone those 2 areas to identify and define what businesses can go in and what businesses can go in as of right. What kind of work can be done there? Because right now, Stoughton tends to have an anything goes anywhere all the time if you get a special permit or a variance. That's true for all of the 3 areas that you've asked about. And that hinders development. It hinders development because if one businessman goes in or businesswoman goes in and invests, they have no real ability to rely on what their neighbor may be because another variance or special permit can go in and change the nature of the area. Part of the dynamic for development is to have commonality of business. One good business feeds another. So for all 3, sewer and proper zoning targeted to the business we want to develop there.
Cynthia?
Well, obviously, I live in South Stoughton, and my property, in fact, abuts Campanelli Park. And I think the sewer is a false issue as far as that goes in that area. That area was underdeveloped and not occupied because of the economy, and now it's filling up fast, so I don't have a real problem. When it comes to further down the road, there's 2 places that really need the sewer, and we've been exploring hooking up to Brockton because Brockton has been looking for additional customers for their sewer system, and that would protect those of us who own property but aren't interested in selling out. The assessment right now is ridiculous. I'm on the committee that's planning the build out of the sewer system. As to North Stoughton, if you talk to the folks up there, they're already feel that they're pretty much at capacity. Remember, there was opposition against Target and IKEA. I think the area you might be talking about is the area behind what used to be Anderson's Market or Pages 2, and that's in the hands of a developer. That's not the town's fault. It keeps churning, it keeps changing hands, and every time they come in and get permits, then they sell to someone else and the project starts again from scratch. 138 South, there are some buildings there, and we really...
Bob Cohn?
I'll start with Campanelli North. Campanelli, I went to go visit the engineer a week ago. He'll have a plan on the table. Campanelli Development down there can increase their value. I rode that a week ago, and the buildings are half full. Imagine if we put sewer down there, what that property is worth to the developer. The only thing that has to be put down there at the very end is a pumping station. To me, very, very important. Heading up the street to Nacera's, they're pumping septic every day. How much does that cost the owner? Sewer comes along that street. Do you imagine how much that property is worth? Going sewer with a big lot of land there, a lot of money. Heading down to North Stoughton, behind Tigard all the way to IKEA, there must be wetland in there too. That's developable property. There's a special section in Boston that's going to have to move eventually. And as soon as they get it, I know the name of the president of the development, the association in there, and we'll put them in touch with them. As far as 138, that big disaster we put in, that station, the Edison promised to put street lights in, sidewalks. The town manager is well aware about it and is acting very much, won't let them hook. So until we get that, and Bob is right, you need a rezone and set up things like that too.
Peter?
Well, I think that first off, the Board of Selectmen's job is to encourage and support the economic growth, and I think that now that we have an economic development officer in place, I think it's their job to get out there and actively recruit these types of business. I've been saying all along that in order to accomplish some of the desires and wishes that we have to bring business to this community. Now, I happen to know that Massachusetts is the fourth worst state to do business in, behind California, New York, and Illinois. So I believe if we're really going to make a difference and try to get business to come here, we're going to have to provide an incentive laden type of thing similar to the Amazon. I know North Stoughton is currently under development. There's some opportunity up there. Hopefully the economic development officer can find someone to go in there. I think 138 South deals with some issues with wetlands and property that seems to be vacant now. But I think that the overall picture calls for the Board of Selectmen and the other committees working collectively with the recommendations of the Economic Development Officer to find business, whether it be industry in the medical field, I've said before, or whatnot, to come here and become stakeholders and see the vision that we want as selectmen sitting here today.
Okay, anybody have any comments on that?
Yeah, I have a comment. I know business pays extra taxes, and that's fine, but we have to think of the people that own homes in this town. If we put sewer down their street and literally price them out of their home so that we can attract new business, we're not helping the residents. When we bring in business that has way too much traffic and people can't get out of their own driveway to take the kids to school or to pick them up in the afternoon, that's not serving the public. We have to balance money with quality of life.
Anybody else?
I do. I agree with Cynthia. And part of the balance is what's the tax burden on the residents to maintain the services we want. And without the right commercial tax base, the residents will either have to pay more or will have to change services. On North Stoughton, there's about 120 acres of developable industrial or commercial rated property up in that area. It's not fully built up. South of Route on 138, I'm working now with a business that is going to relocate along Route 138 and take over 2 abandoned properties close to the eastern line. So there's a lot going on here, and I'm very active in it.
Okay.
Go ahead, Bob.
Well, Cynthia's right in a way. But 68% of this town is sewered right now. And people are desperate for sewerage in some areas. Let's talk around this area there. Cynthia, you have a lot of industrial, your land is an industrial area.
And I am not going to sell the
Cynthia,
family
Cynthia,
farm
I have the-
so that
I have
the
the-
chateau
Excuse
can
me,
have sewer.
excuse me, I have the floor, you had your minute.
Well, if you make
You
a
had your
statement
minute.
that's going to harm me or my family, and you don't think I'm going
Cynthia,
to speak up,
Cynthia.
you're crazy.
Cynthia, you can speak up.
Folks.
Let Bob finish.
She talks about her property. Why don't we ask her how much she gets for her property? I'm trying to be nice, but I'm getting tired of the rebuttals. Her property would triple in value with sewer going by.
I can't
The
afford
trucking-
triple taxes.
Look, if I'm going to be interrupted,
Go ahead.
I'm not going to do this
But if
anymore.
he's
I'm
gonna
going to walk
make a-
out of
if
here.
he's gonna make
It's
a
not,
statement
Cynthia,
that's
I
he's
already-
got the
not
floor.
true.
He's got the floor.
it is true. Don't, please, Cynthia. The property value of the trucking place would be eaten right up. There's customers ready to go in and take that. The sewerage down there is terrible. Naceras is there. This is what you hear talking about businesses in our town. So you just listen to this. The bottom line is Naceras is there. I understand, I had a friend from Brockton that I have over at the station. They won't take our sewerage. They're working with someone to see if we can hook on.
Peter,
Well,
hang on a second.
Okay.
Peter, and then we'll
I'd
let
just like to
Cynthia
say
answer.
that I think that the services, we all can agree on that we all want reliable public safety, both fire and police responding when we need it. We believe in good school systems, which I think we have. I think that we all are happy to have reliable trash service, and I think the DPW, who provides the water and services, is important. But I think if we're talking about industry or commercial, that doesn't tax the services the way that we would think if it was more residents or different housing projects coming in to Stoughton or not.
Well, Cynthia, you want to respond now?
Oh, I think I'll wait till my closing statement.
Okay. All right. This is actually the time where we're going to allow the selectmen candidates to question each other. I always like to listen to what they have to ask about. And Cynthia, you're first, asking a question to everybody here.
I'm here to represent the best Cynthia there can be. I'm not here to tear down the other people.
no, we're asking to.
You
we're
are
ask-
asking a question for.
Basically, to take
all
our
your-
job. You're asking a question that can be geared towards not one specific candidate. It's a question that everybody can answer, including yourself at the end after everybody
No,
has.
I'm not going to do that. Thank you.
Okay?
Okay. Bob O'Regan, you'll be next.
We all had a conversation before the show opened about that very topic, and my recollection is we all decided that we would thoroughly enjoy answering any question you put to us, but that we thought better than trying to zap one another in a go-round like this. So I'll honor my agreement with the other candidates. I'm not
Okay.
going to ask.
Again,
Well, first of all-
just to clarify for everybody, that wasn't the purpose of
No,
this.
it's not to zap one
Well,
another.
I
It's just
said
to
zap
ask a
with a
question,
smile, so, you know.
an intelligent
smile.
question that we may not have asked. That's what it's about. It's
Well,
not
we
about.
can-
I
I
don't
have plenty
think there is an
of questions.
intelligent
I've
Yes.
only
question you didn't
answered
ask.
That's
I've
fine.
only asked 2 questions.
Wow. Wow.
Go ahead.
All right, well, that's a first, so
Yes,
we can,
That's never happened before.
well, it's live
Okay.
TV, we
But
can
a-
call an
again,
audible.
They will go, it's true. And Cynthia is the first one that gets it.
All
It's
right,
her
so the next question will deal with the capital projects in town. And there's a lot of capital projects coming down the pipeline, and whether that be the Stoughton High School building project, the library, discussed public safety building, shared public safety between the police and fire. How does the town go about affording these projects? We're talking about well north of $100 million of capital expenses here. What's your top priority, and how do we go about affording this again?
The projects you've mentioned, and we've answered this question before, are already in the pipeline. The money for the library expansion is already there. The state has come forward with their share, and town meeting has authorized the borrowing. The next project that's in the pipeline, and right now they're doing the feasibility study, is the high school. Everyone knows that the state controls a lot of the timelines because they're going to contribute about half of the cost. But still, it's pretty likely that that's going to require a debt exclusion or an override. The public safety building is, they're just looking at locations right now, publicly owned property. So that's, I think, the order. And we've been able to build a senior center, a fire station, public works building, renovate town hall, and build a new police station.
Bob Cohn?
Well, the first one is right. The library, they're going to borrow money. The treasurer, we've paid down a lot of our debt. The borrowing is there. The school, we get 55% back on that, and I bet you we're going to have to borrow $75 million to do that. And I understand from the superintendent of schools, you cannot build. You build to the population you have now, plus an addition onto that. So the school you're going to build, this is going to be as big, I don't think, as what we have. That building has to come down. It's a dump. The third one is the public safety building. As Bob O'Regan and I preach every time, the place is dying. It's overextended. It's a dump of the worst. We've got to do something with the public safety building and get that going so we can get Friedman Street done and finished with and out. The other thing we have to watch very, very, very closely is South Coastal Rail.
Peter?
Well, we have talked about this several times, and the first thing I'd like to say is I would never support an override. Debt exclusion is probably the only option. One of the things that I have tabled is that in order to build and continue to build, I know we have the funding for the library and we're looking at a high school, and we all know what condition the high school's in, and the public safety building. I'd like to table this idea of maybe extending our hand to the 2024 Olympic Committee that is exploring the possibility of coming to the state, and if it comes here, I think we should be the town that explores that, possibly, extending a hand to do something with them that would be able to funnel some money into our community that could help build these buildings that we so dire need.
Bob?
So the question was, what are the priorities and how do you pay for it? So the town meeting has set the library as a priority, so that's already been cast in stone. Half of that will be paid, almost half by the state. It's without doubt that we need a public safety building, and the high school, I believe we'll wind up having a new high school recommended by the State Building Authority. I think the only option, if we need to go there, would be a debt exclusion, but I think we should do that as a last resort. Up until that point, we should manage our new growth and earmark a percentage of new growth every year toward these capital projects. Don't consume it like we tend to do. Manage our operating budget carefully and prudently. Level service funding unless there's a good reason not to. Scrutinize the operating budget as we've done over the past 3 years to make sure we're only paying for what we need, but we're paying our employees appropriate, comparable pay for what they get in other communities. Thank you.
Anybody else have any?
Yes, this is something I was considering, and it's not new with Cynthia Walsh because other communities do it. We get about $600,000 a year between lodging taxes and meals taxes. It's possible to dedicate that money and put it into the Building Stabilization Fund. Now, it's not a lot of money, but it's more money than that's in there now. And I think that would help us so that, at least for the public safety building, which is a little further down the line, we'd have time to bank account some money toward that so that our borrowing would be sensible and not require an override or debt exclusion.
Anybody else? Okay. Next question, and this one's going to Bob Cohn.
All right, let's talk about the budget a little bit, and we'll just talk with the general theme in town. And this is a question I asked to the school committee candidates: is that the budget seems to go up about 5% every year, and it's more than the traditional 2.5% that's always cited, that figure. Is this something that's sustainable? And what's your take on this budget process? And what would your personal budget philosophy be as a member of the Board of Selectmen in dealing with this?
Again, if I become a Board of Selectmen member, I will freeze the department head salaries until I learn something about them. Again, I'm an outsider coming in. I don't have the privy of the day-to-day operations of that. The school budget, you got to add on the capital expenses too on that budget. It's more than 5%, sir. It's a lot more than that. It seems every year the town cuts and the schools spend. I don't mind them spending, but we got a 2.5%, and eventually we're going to get ourselves in some serious trouble. One thing they don't do, the selectmen, I know, get the budget and they're thrown at them and they got 3 or 4 days to review the budget. They need more time. And someone ought to say to someone, if we have to back up town meeting, we'll back it up. Another thing that we bring up all the time is we don't know what the cherry sheet is. We keep bringing this up. Mr. O'Regan brought it up. I know that. And
Peter.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I declared my candidacy when I've been watching the budget grow. And I know that there are 2 forms of this budget, in my opinion. One is what we describe as mandatory spending, which is somewhere around $100 million as we speak. You know, it's $40 million in debt that we have, and another $8 million in what I like to refer as discretionary spending. And the discretionary spending is where I become a little concerned, because we try to accomplish a lot year in and year out, and in some cases we're not going to be able to continue on this path unless we're able to bring in additional money. Now, currently we have $6 million in free cash, I believe, if my number is correct, that is from collecting tax revenue year in and year out, and which is an awesome thing for our town. But we also have to keep in mind that if we continue to ask more of our residents, how many can continue to afford these types of increases? And last, I think we have to take a look at salaries and the way they increase.
Well,
So the larger share of the growth in the town budget is on the school department side. On the municipal side, it's a smaller amount of growth. The question was, how do you manage this? And is 2.5%, which is the change in property level we can go, something we ought to stay within? I think it is, but we have to remember, many of the costs we have to spend are not discretionary. Retirement, insurance, operating costs, fuel for public safety, vehicles, snow, things like that. Many of these expenses are not necessarily within our control. The source of the revenue is not just property tax increase, it's fees, licenses, revenue sharing from the state, and new growth. My belief is we should, and we've done this 1 year and it worked well, set aside a percentage of the levy for debt service, use the rest for the operating budget, level service funding, and no exceptions.
Cynthia?
Well, the amount of free cash that we have, we should thank all the department managers for, because it indicates that they manage their budgets very well. And we're very lucky that we have that money. Some neighboring communities actually want to have an override or debt exclusion to pay their snow removal costs. Now, Stoughton can pay their snow removal costs out of that money. There's actually going to be a tiny little surplus, but not a lot. We've been coasting along on new growth and free cash now for a number of years. Even when the economy wasn't that good, we were still doing well. But as previous speakers have said, that's not going to last forever. We really should consider not just freezing salaries, but we really should consider not adding new employees unless someone can show where that money's coming from. And we really didn't have much time this year between the weather and chairman's injuries, because several of us, I'm not the only member of the board who wanted to get involved in that.
Anybody else have anything they want to add to that?
I just want to add that we did have a terrible winter in terms of snow, but we are eligible for getting some of that money back, if not from the state, possibly federal. And I would suggest, and I strongly suggest, that the ability for us to bank this $6 million came more on the heels of the taxpayers and their kindness in paying the increases year in and year out. And although the department heads probably do an outstanding job managing their budgets, they're still before us in Finance Committee asking for all sorts of capital projects, which is what I seem to, on occasion. Okay,
Bob?
thank you.
I just want to add that nobody likes paying taxes. I'm probably one of the people who likes paying taxes less than anybody else, except for maybe the
I'll
woman.
fight you for it.
You might be.
And it's good that we have this surplus, but let's remember a number of the capital problems we have to face are because we have not maintained our buildings. It's like saying I can put money in the bank because I haven't fixed the roof or put windows in my house. Literally, we haven't done those things. So it's not necessarily money
Yeah.
sitting around.
Cynthia had her hand up first.
It's just that we spent over $1 million in snow removal, the bills are still coming in, and besides plowing the streets, the schools and the town spent tens of thousands of dollars shoveling off roofs. So we haven't got all those bills yet. The state has come forward with very little money, and our governor hasn't even filed all the paperwork with the feds. So I have a funny feeling we're going to find ourselves paying those bills.
Bob, you wanted to talk?
Yeah, I'm sure there's all kinds of talks in the paper. I happened to run into Representative Galvin down at Town Spa last night, and he feels that we'll get some money back. Can't tell us how much. I thought it'd be 75%. Also, on a capital lay equipment, if this is the winters we're going to have right now, we've got to have the equipment to work with them. We didn't have the proper equipment. We had to rent a lot and hire people to come in to do this.
Anybody else? Okay. Next question is going to Peter.
Sure. So this is just a hypothetical. I understand that, but bear with me. It's just more or less to get your philosophy in terms of spending money, which we just discussed in the last question. If the town was given $1 million, which isn't a lot considering how much the town spends, but if the town was given an extra $1 million, there's no other conditions, it's not like we're having a budget shortfall, it's the current conditions we face today, and we got another $1 million. What do you advise that we do with that money?
Well, I would love to have $1 million, and if the town was to get it, I think that the primary concern would be to improve our infrastructure. As one of the speakers mentioned earlier, that we have some buildings that are really falling into situations that need repair. So I see roads that are in need of repair. I know that there are lots of desires for water and sewer changes. So I think that we'd apply that $1 million directly to repairing and implementing and changing some of our worn and older infrastructure. So I think that would be the best place to put the $1 million. And if we had to spend it all, that would be something I'd focus on. But if we could save just a little, we'd throw it in for the rainy day account.
Bob, O'Regan?
If I had $1 million,
Let's sing that song.
I would look for a place we could leverage it. That is, multiply the $1 million that we would get by leveraging it on other opportunities that we're not able to or haven't taken advantage of. My immediate thought on that is leveraging it in the sewer design, because in some areas of town, our revenue from improved business would triple if the businesses there could improve and have sewer, and we need money to pay for the sewer design. We need money in the downtown to acquire property to make the downtown attractive and workable for business and residents. Again, leveraging the $1 million to help expand the tax base, to take the burden off the residents so that we can accomplish the things that we are out to do. The downtown is a prime place for that. And it might just be with the money left over from the sewer study that we could acquire the land in the block between Porter, Wyman, and Washington Streets to focus on that as a center of
Cynthia.
redevelopment.
You're up.
Well, I would do with that $1 million what I just did with my tax refund. I would bank it. Now, in Stoughton, where I would bank it would be in the Building Stabilization Fund. We've just been talking about how we're going to pay for 3 really big projects. $1 million, well, probably, maybe that'll pay for the foundation. But it's if it's the way you describe it, it's found money. We don't need it right now for anything. Let's bank it for when these projects come online, and we'll end up borrowing less money.
Bob Cohn?
How about giving it back to the taxpayers and try to reduce their tax rate? Maybe we think of that? We pay a rubbish fee, we pay a school fee, we pay an athletic fee, we pay this fee, and all we do is get feed to death now. Why don't we just give it back to the taxpayer and maybe give them a break of $10 or $15? Because I've traveled this town in the last 6 weeks, friends. You can tell by the signs on the street, and I put them all out myself with someone else. And that's all I've been hearing is taxes, taxes, taxes. Give them back to the people.
Okay, anybody have a rebuttal to that?
I do.
Go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
The issue is how much can you, the real issue is how much value can you give to the people of the town from that $1 million? Giving everything back doesn't allow you to multiply the money for the benefit of the town. If we leverage that money and invest it in the town, what it means is that there's a better commercial and industrial economic base, so the tax burden on the residents is less, which means in the long term, the residents pay less taxes. So you get more bang for the $1 million, or you get more bang for the $1 million than you do if you just give it back. I'll take my share of the $1 million, but I think it's better spent, leveraged, than distributed.
Cynthia had her hand up first.
$1 million to the individual sounds like a lot, but $1 million wouldn't even take care of everyone's trash fee for a single year, because it costs more than $1 million to pick up the trash every year. So yes, everybody would save the $46 or $7 that for each quarter, or slightly less for 1 year, and then they'd get whacked again the next year. So I really think if you bank it for these projects that are coming in the future, it is more bang for your buck.
Bobby, did you want to speak?
Yeah, again, I stay with the same thing I said before. Give the people of this town. I mean, we got senior citizens that can't even afford to pay in their houses. And that's all we hear is taxes, taxes, taxes. And it's time, whatever little it is, show that we respect the poor taxpayers of this town.
Okay, the next question is going to be going to Bob O'Regan.
Okay. I'd like to tackle the issue of open space briefly with this question, and specifically there has been discussion about possibly adding more open space on 138 South near what would be basically the border of the Bird Street Conservation. Do you feel that the town should be adding open space at this time, or would you like to see something different done with this land?
I can tell you that I'm working with a business now to relocate on that property. And part of the discussions we're having is for that business owner to donate a substantial portion of that property to the town. So if this knits together, it'll be, I think, a good thing for the town. We're not making new land. We're not going to make new open space. Open space is good for all of us. Other communities, for example, that have had success in keeping away 40B projects, early on when they saw these projects coming down the pike, went about setting off land as conservation land that was not necessarily easily developed. What we've seen in Stoughton is land that was not necessarily easily developed be turned into 40Bs, and we know we don't like that. I was on the Housing Policy Committee aimed at slowing down the growth of 40Bs. In addition to the benefit of open space, conservation, setting aside conservation controls unwanted 40B development.
Cynthia?
According to the master plan forums that I've been to, 1 out of every 5 acres in Stoughton is open space. That means that instead of 100% of the property being available for taxation, only 80% is. So that we're all paying extra, not just the CPC money, but we're all paying extra in taxes because 20% of the land isn't taxable. And I own some open space. I pay taxes on my open space. How many walking trails does a place need? And if we're just buying up land so it won't be developed, what kind of plan is that for the future?
Bob?
I 100% agree with Ms. Walsh. We have open space on West Street. I don't see anything. I see a playground. At Glen Echo, we did Glen Echo. It was told to me we were going to build a swimming sport. Everything was going to be picnic areas and stuff. Well, you can't do it with 14 parking spaces. We don't know what, we have so much open land, we don't know what to do with it. And I agree with Ms. Walsh that some of that has to be used. I praise Bobby for getting a business in there. The temple has land in the back. We have no use for it. Eventually, we're going to give it to the town. But we ought to have a master plan of what we're going to do with the land we already have and how we're going to develop that for the public. I know we have playgrounds. We've got too many playgrounds now.
Peter?
Well, I agree. I echo Ms. Walsh's statement regarding the open space. We have more open space than most of the surrounding communities. One of the things that bothered me was when we decided to purchase Glen Echo, there was a plan to develop it and create some usage down there. And last summer, it seemed to have a lot of opposition from the Canton residents, and they were opposed to letting us develop what we're looking to do down there to have residents be able to enjoy the purchase we made. I think that purchasing any more open space at this point is probably not a great idea. I think we have to look at, with the challenges facing us, we have to look at spending wisely and not just to buy up land because we're worried that someone's going to develop there. And I compliment my colleague here if he's working to get that property sold and donation of land, because that's just a great idea. But open space is where we're at.
Cynthia?
I want to make it clear, I'm not in favor of selling any of the open space we've already purchased, but I would like to see more recreational uses developed than walking trails.
Bob?
So I may have misunderstood the question. I thought you were focused on that particular area of town.
No, I was.
So-
I was specifically that.
that's
do
why
we
I
need more open space?
That's why I answered the question the way I did, and I've been working on that project, and I'm hopeful that I really think that's going to come together. The issue of what more open space do we need, and where is it, and how do we, and if and when we buy it, should be on a case-by-case, parcel-by-parcel basis. They're not making more trees. We need open space to refresh the water supply. We need open space to refresh the air we breathe, and it's an asset for the town.
Bob? The other Bob?
There's a way to, looking at a development that is going to be before us at town meeting, 128 apartments, senior, over 62, I'll say. There's ways to go around 40B. And I agree, 40B is not what this town wants. But there's ways we can build without 40Bs too.
Okay, we're going to do really quickly
Let
on
me
the last
just
question
let me
here.
just touch on that, because that's an important point. Mr. Cohen, that 128-unit project includes an affordable component. It's called inclusionary zoning. That's one of the things I've been trying to get going. Inclusionary zoning means if you build property, build residential development, above a certain amount of units, you have to include a 10% so that we don't diminish our supply of affordable housing and therefore trigger 40Bs as of right. That's where the affordable component is in that project.
Okay, I'm going to end the.
Wait a minute, I have to answer this, I'm sorry.
You have to be very, very quick,
All
because
right.
we're running out of time.
There's 15 units that are going to be designated to affordable. And there's also going to be a certain amount that are going to be given preference to Stoughton residents. So these guys are professionals and knows what they're doing. And he went to the same presentation I did, and I have no worry about that.
And the
Okay.
other thing about that project is there's going to be a considerable, hey, two other people got two.
Go ahead.
There's going to be considerable open space preserved. Almost half the site is not buildable and will be, they're even planning on a few walking trails.
Thank
We
you.
have 15 seconds.
Okay, we're going to have the last question right now, and this one's going to go to Cynthia.
And this is before closing. We'll just ask to kind of
Very quick.
just to go quickly, and also probably limit rebuttals just because of time. But the question would be that there's been the topic of access to information from the town manager, and there's been a motion to vote on getting a report from the town, the selectmen getting a report from the town manager. What would you like to see in this report other than finances? Just talk about what you would feel would be most helpful for you as a selectman to be seeing from this report.
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Well, I think this is my 4th town manager this time around. And so a previous town manager, we got a bi-weekly report, and it basically just said where he was on particular days or what he was doing, that he went to an MAPC meeting, that he went to an MWRA meeting, that he talked to the Brockton mayor, so that we had an idea of the kind of outreach that he was doing. And I think that's important. I think that the present manager doesn't blow his own horn, and he should. I mean, getting Amazon was huge. And he had to do that without our assistance because that's what Amazon demanded. Complete silence except dealing with him and the state. So I really think his personality just doesn't, he's not a big braggart. But if we had a monthly report or a bi-weekly report of his activity.
Bob.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bob Cohn.
I really can't see this. I can see a piece of paper, but I can't read it.
What I'd want from the town manager is, if I had a monthly report, I'd want to know the water use. We got problems with our wells right now, and if we don't watch ourselves, we're allotted 1.4 million gallons of water based on our wells. I'm sure we can override that, but we got wells in trouble with manganese, and 3 of them have it, and the Department of whatever they are has put up their standards now. We're going to need a filtering plant very shortly. I'd like to see a building report of people inquiring about coming to the town of Stoughton. There's 3 right now that are coming, that are inquiring, and some are building. And the next one, I'd like to have department heads reports every month or week, whatever you want to do it with.
Peter?
I believe communication makes for confident leadership. I think that if you're not hearing what's going on, especially as the highest authority or elected officials in the town, you're not gonna have a good understanding of the day-to-day operations. And although it's not essential for Board of Selectmen to meddle in the daily events, I think that there's plenty of information that should be provided. For example, reports of department heads and what's going on in their departments, condition of equipment, projects that may be outstanding, and certainly any issues or complaints or citizen concerns that should be provided on a monthly basis. Thank you.
Bob?
So there's a need, I think, to understand what we already get. What we already get is, I call it a monthly budget variance report. So we have a budget. The budget is the layout of what's supposed to happen in your town for the following year, and monthly we get a report that tells us how your money is being spent. I use that to, in part, tell me what's going on with the department budgets. I don't want to have department heads and town managers spending days and days and days writing reports, because that means they're not doing the work they need done for the town. I'd like a periodic report on special appropriations and special projects, like the public safety building that's being looked at. I'd like to include personnel matters on a gross level, nothing private to any employee. I'd like department activities information. There's such thing as overload. Monthly water usage reports is not something the board can necessarily do with, but outside certain parameters would be important. Grants and economic development activities, and then anything we're not doing
We've gone over
to
our
get a
time
kick.
already. So the closing statements are going to be 30 seconds rather than 60, since we don't have enough time for everybody to do that. Cynthia, you're starting, and we're going this way.
30 seconds?
You just used 5 seconds.
Last pitch to the voters.
Look right in the
before
cameras.
election day.
My name is Cynthia Walsh. I would like to be elected to the third term this time, fourth term overall. If you know anything about me, if you've met me, if you've learned anything about me over the years, you know that I'm a fair person. I'm not an angry person. I don't want to be a selectman so I can bully and threaten people. I think I work well with others, or I should say what we used to put on the report card, plays well with others when I was a teacher.
Bob O'Regan?
First, I want to thank you for the privilege of serving for the last 3 years on your Board of Selectmen and ask for your vote on April 7th. Many of the things we've talked about tonight are things that I've worked to put in place. We've heard reference to a building fund. The building fund was a proposal I made in my first year in office. It's key to the building we need to do. A capital plan. I pressed, if you remember, on the floor of town meeting year after year, we finally have a capital plan. Didn't have one 4 years ago. We have one now. Work on the downtown has been a focus of my work on the Board of Selectmen and before. And I'll continue this. Thank you.
When I first decided to run for Board of Selectmen, I wasn't seeking any particular status. I'm not fascinated with popularity, and I'm not concerned with fame. I have no personal affiliations or connections to any specific group. In fact, I have no interest in cementing relationships that serve the agenda of any selected few. I believe Stoughton is a great town that has rich tradition and proud people. You're going to get a chance to vote on April 7th. I hope that you consider me as one of your votes. I believe I practice core values that represent honesty, passion, commitment, and respect. Thank you.
Bob?
Please go out to vote, the most important thing. All of us can't win, but we want to get the vote out to make you make the choice of who's going to sit there. I'm well qualified for this position. I've been in this town a long time and served on many boards. I hear your problems. I've heard them all during 6 weeks of this. I watch your programs, your problems on television. I'm the guy you want. You know who I am. You know what I do. You watch town meeting. I fight for what I believe in, and I'll do the same thing.
I want to thank all the candidates for coming in tonight. Thank you very much. I want to thank the audience for watching. And special thanks to Michael Hammond, David Young, Christine Iacobucci, Jordan L. Kerry, Tyler Miles, Justin Nguyen, and of course Jeff Pickett. I want to thank everybody again for watching and to be an educated voter, to check all these things out. And don't forget the most important thing. On April 7th, go vote. If you don't vote, don't complain, okay? Because if you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Want to say goodbye?
Thanks again for tuning in, and just a quick reminder that we will be having a live election results show. That's election night, Tuesday, April 7th, and it will start at 8:30 p.m., so make sure you tune in and you can find out the results as they're coming in, precinct by precinct. So thanks again for joining us. And
March 27th, this will be on again, and March 28th, it'll be on at 7 o'clock. March 29th, it'll be on at 10. So look at StoughtonTV.com and check it out.
you can check out all of our election coverage there. Thank you.